We are not fans of the Minister of Police. You know the guy that shouts, "Shut up!" when you disagree with him. But for once, we're going to, unfortunately, protect him. Because in this instance, he was 100% correct.
So this is a great battle between the police and experts. So the police has been a bit of a role lately in South Africa whereby they're just like shooting criminals. Like 9 were killed in KZN over the course of last week. 6 others were shot elsewhere. And for the most part, the public are like quite supportive of this initiative. And so are we. I must be honest, when the police shoot a criminal, one less issue to worry about in South Africa. Crime has been averted indefinitely thanks to that criminal. But Bheki Cele has come out defending the police, which is excellent. But the experts are saying this is not something that is sustainable. This is not how you solve crime or prevent crime from perpetuating itself. Now, we hate Bheki Cele, but we really, really, really hate experts.
Whenever you hear the word expert, question to yourself, what are they an expert in? Because what they are not an expert in is life. They may be academics. They may even think, oh, this would be a good idea. But when they say this is not an effective strategy, I challenge them with a real-life scenario, which according to the experts is a terrible scenario. It's El Salvador. In El Salvador, if a drug lord goes out and kills another person, they bring in the entire army to surround the place and arrest the guilty parties. And guess what, Ramon? El Salvador has the lowest crime rate now in the world. They went from having one of the worst to like non-existent. Would you know it? When the police are actually given the powers to stop crime, and when the actual result of crime is that it ain't going to end well for you, people stop committing crime. Who knew? Clearly not the experts.
No, and the expert always has like a theoretical view. It's like, there's something wrong with our entire crime control model. So we need to have, uproot and reform the whole system before we can actually solve the problems at hand. No, the way to solve crime is to shoot criminals in the head. That's the way to solve crime. It's worked for millennia. It's worked for hundreds of years. It worked for decades until very recently in South Africa. We don't need to reform anything. We don't need to look at the underlying causes of why crime occurs. The reason why crime occurs is because criminals don't get punished. It's because criminals do not get shot in the head and die. El Salvador has shown this is the case. You can't go from the most crime-ridden country in the world to be as safe as Luxembourg, which is not even a real country, but Luxembourg is as safe as El Salvador. El Salvador is safer than most of the United States. 3 years ago, it was the most crime-ridden murder capital of the world. And they solved it by locking up criminals or shooting criminals in the head. You don't need a PhD in policing to know what to do. There's like real-life examples right there. And if Bheki Cele sort of agrees with that, we have to support him on this.
Yeah, although I would challenge the actual notion that there is no actual expert support of such a policing mechanism. Ramon, in the year 2006, when I was actually going through university, I was actually doing my master's degree, I read a book. Maybe it's a book that you've read. It's by a guy named Stephen Levitt. It's called Freakonomics. And in this book, he basically writes how statistics can show you that there's certain things that people say politically are attributable to a policy, but when you show statistically, it's not that policy that it's attributable to. And one of the things that he discusses is how could you eliminate drunk driving? And he says, and I quote, he says, you can eliminate drunk driving by doing one thing and one thing only, and that is empowering police officers to breathalyze you at the side of the road. If you found with alcohol in your system, the police officer is authorized to basically execute you at the side of the road. And Stephen Levitt shows with statistical analysis that if you did that, lo and behold, Ramon, the incentive to drink drive would be so disincentivized, no one would do it because you wouldn't want to get caught and then shot in the head for being drink driving at the side of the road because you failed the breathalyzer. So they knew in 2006, if you actually provide a form of deterrent to committing a crime, and if the deterrent is severe enough to warrant you not to take the risk, that as risk takers, human beings inevitably would avoid the actual behavior. So that's what the experts were telling us in 2006. But in 2023, the experts are saying, Yeah, it's not a good look, is it? I mean, we want criminals because they're the good guys, really. I mean, think about it.
Yeah, basically, if anyone says the solution to something is so theoretical, overwhelming, and revolutionary, those people are idiots. And those people are paid masters of the globalists. And those people are not worth responding to or taking seriously whatsoever. Crime, if you solve it in South Africa, the rest of the issues are super, super easy. Crime causes poverty. Crime causes corruption. Crime causes load shedding. Crime causes every single thing that is holding us back as a nation. Once you solve crime, you solve everything else. And this is the hill I'm going to die on. Bheki Cele is not the guy, to make crime go away. Don't get me wrong. But in this particular instance, he has to protect and defend the police. If you want to go and assault the police, don't be surprised when you get shot in the head. And there's no human rights organization around the world that can tell me otherwise.
No, there isn't. But there is this strange thing that is going on around the world, regardless of where you are. And that is all these human rights organizations are all protecting criminals and people who break the law. They don't necessarily protect the people that, uphold the law because, the law is like racist and stuff. And we're seeing this right across the US, where a lot of these civil rights organizations actually get their funding from. And what we're seeing in those, let's call them Democrat cities, because that's what they are, they're blue cities. As you know, the crime is inevitably protected by the politicians, and the police are demonized by the politicians and told, you don't really want to uphold the law, because that's like, it's bad, right? And the next result of that is you have places like California, where no one wants to have a store in California because you get looted. Or maybe you have San Francisco or Chicago, where you're more likely to get shot for like your hat, a bit like being in Kailisha, I suppose, then you would actually been able to get an actual job or a burger. I mean, those cities are having record immigration, people leaving those cities because of bad policy. But inevitably, all we ever see is the form of neo-colonialism that we talk about quite a bit, where the individuals bring their shitty ideas to Africa and go, yeah, Bheki Cele says, in a country that has one of the highest crime rates in the world, where the police need to be empowered to stop the criminals from committing crimes, the human rights organizations go, yeah, that sounds a bit, anti-human rights, isn't it? What about the human rights of the rest of us, Ramon, to, live peacefully in a law-abiding country where our lives aren't at risk?